just welcome my guest in studio, Senator Gloria. Welcome to the studio.
Good morning.
Karibu sana.
Thank you for having me.
A few weeks ago, let me just start by that. There was an article. You're so much hardworking. And it was talk of the town. The bill and whatever you're pushing for the benefit of the girl child, women, our mothers out there. This must be so close to your heart.
Yes, absolutely. It's a work in progress. I have tabled the bill on free sanitary pads to all schoolgirls and women in prisons. And hopefully I get enough support that, because the bill, it has a process. You table it, first reading, second reading, then you have to get 24 votes. And I've learned from my Konza bill that 24 votes looks like very little, but the Konza bill I actually lost by 2 votes, so it could not proceed. I have to now start the process again. So I hope with the free sanitary pads bill, I'll be able to get the 24 votes so that now we can move to committee of the whole, and then, hopefully it comes into law. Are you optimistic about this time around? I am very optimistic, but I have to be aware and stay alive to the fact that both houses are dominated by men. And as much as there's a lot of advocacy and sensitization towards why it is important for this bill to actually come into law, I still have to depend on the fact that I have to convince. It's the men that have the numbers in the houses. And so, for instance, in the Senate, nominated women, all 16 of them cannot vote. We don't have a vote. So that's already 16 votes gone. So I'm optimistic, but I really hope the men don't let me down on this one. Yeah.
Soma na Glo, an initiative by Senator Gloria Orwoba. Tell me much about that, Senator.
That's my latest initiative.
You're so busy.
When God gives you an opportunity, right? You have to, there's the parable of the talents. You have to do something with what you have at the moment. When I was going around distributing sanitary pads to schools, in various schools, I realized some public schools have a very high population and others, very small population. When I probed and I was asking, this is a nice school, for instance, like Kileleshwa Primary, very nice school, so many classes that are empty, they've even locked them, they have the infrastructure, they have desks, they have chairs, but they don't have students. When I was asking them, what's the issue? Because this is a nice school, I would imagine that most parents would want to bring their kids there. Then I was told, for instance, for this particular school, it's far from the localities where the children live. So therefore, the parents prefer to take their kids to a place they can walk to. In terms of transport, they don't have a school bus. So coming maybe from Kawangware or from Kangemi or from Kibera would require that you use the public transport. Public transport has been difficult, especially since the governor urged the matatu owners to carry the school children for free. Now there's that notion of if you see the children during rush hour, make sure you don't stop, because if they enter, they take space and it's free. So it's been difficult. So what I decided to do in this particular case is to pilot. If we can get a number, we have 55. We actually had 100 and something. But because of I'm sponsoring this from my pocket, I was unable to get like many matatus to charter. So we started with 55, and I got them uniforms. I made sure the admission process was covered. And so now every morning, actually around this time, no, actually at 6:30, they are picked from one stop, they're taken to Kileleshwa. And then in the evening, they'll be picked from Kileleshwa back to one stop.
This reminds me of what Governor Sakaja also said, that he was also planning to have free transport to school-going children every particular morning and even evening. It reminds me all back in the days of Nyayo bus. Remember, school kids and kids would board for free.
I really wish, first of all, the schools such as Kileleshwa that are a bit distant from the localities where the kids live, I wish the government would look into, the Ministry of Education would look into just providing school buses. Because you see, if there was a school bus, the school bus could now, the school would probably just look into the issue of now fuel. So one of the things we are trying to work out is, what's the sustainable solution? Because I can sponsor them a year, 2 years, maybe, but we need a permanent solution. And then, we have already on the list about 130 parents who are in waiting. They want to actually move from the schools around Dagoretti, especially Kawangware, Kabiru, and Gatina, and go to Kileleshwa.
Yes.
Kileleshwa has a capacity, I think, of about 1,200. And right now, with the 55 that we have added, they are just about 320 or so. So, I mean, it's an opportunity there. And for me, it's a public school. Why have 120 or 150 kids in one class, let's say down in Gatina or Kawangware, because the parents cannot afford that transport. And then in Kileleshwa, you have 10 kids. So if you look at that, even in terms of the efficiency of the resources that we have for Ministry of Education, the teachers, it doesn't make sense.
All right.
Yeah.
Senator, I think that was you. That was your function yesterday.
Yes.
We'll be taking a look at that. Nice young going school kids, and now the schools are reopening for the shortest term. You said this is a pilot program.
It's a pilot program. I hope to have another intake of about 100 in January. Of course, I'm fundraising because I don't want to take it on for 2 months and then not be able to sustain it.
Yes.
So I'm trying to pull resources from my friends and figure out if I can do 2 years for another 100 or if at one point we can be able to sustain, fundraising for a school bus for the school. Yeah.
We'll be getting much more into that. An interesting discussion there. Having in mind that kids are all about it, it's all about education here. Matters to education. Let me start with the front page of the Daily Nation. Higher salaries for teachers as schools reopen. Higher salaries for teachers as schools reopen. We have got a total breakdown there, TSC to backdate and pay delayed cash before Thursday. That is on the front page of the Daily Nation. Teachers Union strike pay deal with the employer that will see the lowest paid tutors benefit more, with those teaching in rural areas bagging improved housing allowances. That is the story on the front page. But still on the front page, it's a golden moment. Gallant heroines lead medal charge to save Kenya by Save Kenya the Blushes. That is a complete pull-out here for you. So far, there is a table with Kenya having 10 medals. We are actually ahead of Ethiopia. Our biggest headache. 9 medals, Uganda 2, Morocco 2, and Burkina Faso 1. Makofi to the golden ladies.
Absolutely.
We can never say this enough. Medal after medal after medal. I mean, when you had what can you say about these ladies?
Let me tell you, this is a clear example of just if you pump in a little, if we're intentional about our sports. You can't say that maybe we have been at it like we just came into office a year ago, right? But you can see the strides that Ababu has been trying. I know there's a lot of conversation about Waziri Ababu Namwamba, but you can see that if we pay a little bit attention to our athletes, just a little bit, look at the results that we had. Now imagine if we actually mentor, if we have a whole industry intentionally, if we motivate, if we professionalize even the trainings. There's a notion that if you come from a certain region in this country, you can run. You don't need a coach. You need very little. No, you can imagine if we actually take it in professionally. From a government perspective, we put resources aside. We ensure that resources are being spent at the right level to the right people, and then in the next competitions, you'll see that it's automatic. You'll see the output. You pump in resources in the input, and you will automatically see the output.
And the motivation effect.
The motivation effect.
What the president did the other day with Faith Kipyegon.
Being recognized, being able to know that you're a contributor to this economy in one way or another, just being appreciated. By the way, our athletes are not asking for so much, basic things. Now, my issue is, how do you nurture that talent? Because you can't say that you will wait for those who somehow through their private ways or through outsourcing of coaches or whatever find their way to the platform is when now you come and say as a government, now we have seen you participating in so-and-so competition. No, we have to be able to nurture the athletes from high school. Yeah. We have to. That's a responsibility that government has to be able to take, and long-term, such that the same way you are getting scholarships because you are an A student from class 8. It should be automatic that by Form 2, someone has discovered you can run. So you are able to get a scholarship somewhere, go for, Yeah, so that's something we need to be intentional on.
Some lunch for Mora and Kipyegon?
Yeah,
when they arrive?
Okay. Faith got a good welcoming when she arrived. It was, yeah.
Okay, but
that's another thing we need to do. We need to revive the days, like you said, of when we celebrated our athletes when they came back home.
Yeah.
That has to be, it's something that we have to do collectively as a nation. Yes, it has to be a tradition.
Exactly.
Welcoming committee, yeah.
Okay. Ruto orders investor out of Mumias Sugar. A close ally of Rai, that's just one try, yesterday questioned by DCI over possible money laundering, and now President Ruto directed that all those currently occupying Mumias Sugar to vacate and withdraw cases. The issue of the sugar industry is still giving us some sour taste in the mouth, Senator, because when you listen to what the President said yesterday, it's a deep-rooted problem that's affecting Mumias, Sony Sugar, Kibos, affecting all sugar industries that we have in the country. When you travel across the country, Senator, go to Mumias, the ripple effect is quite visible. Farmers are no longer there. The drivers are no longer there. And even people who were casual laborers are no longer there. I would imagine if the sugar industry is revived, do you have, as a Senate, what are you doing just to help the President push for the whole of this sector to come back to life?
First of all, I think, I know there's a spin of this narrative of how, we are back to the Moi era and whatnot. Listen, if it will take a president who has to really put his foot down and say that, you know, the country is bigger than one individual, that is where we're going. Because, I listened and I've been listening. And when people say cartels, it's not a joke. Cartels exist everywhere. And you know, they've been deep-rooted in a way because they've been there for years and years. So they know how to maneuver the system.
It's in their DNA now.
I mean, even if you go to court, they know how to maneuver the court processes. They know how to. So it's when the president says deep-rooted, it is not just for show. These are people who, as a government, the only way to uproot them is to say enough is enough. And that is what the president is saying. That this nonsense of you know how to legally find loopholes, you know how to work the system to benefit you, all those things we are saying no. So the bottom line is, it might seem as a very aggressive and dictatorial approach, but that's what we need. How many governments have come in and they have been unable to deal with this sugar industry? And not because they did not have the resources, because of the cartels, you know? And you know, when you talk about cartels, you're not talking about a simple individual who does not have resources. You're talking about people who control private banks, people who know how to clean whatever money that they're doing, people who know how to even drive down a government, a public resource, and then come back and say, now we have to privatize it, we need to sell it. Look at what we're dealing with at the Senate, to the issue of Telkom Kenya, you know. They have been around long enough to know, if I'm to take over, let's say, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, I need to drive it down, ensure that it does not, perform even at the bare minimum, and then come and table a report in a certain entity, and then push so that now we say Kenya Broadcasting Corporation has to be privatized, and then you're the same people who are buying. You know, if you look at Mumias and you are talking about there are no drivers, there are no workers, there are no this. What happened to all the assets? Because
some of the machines are completely obsolete now, right?
Yes. What happened to all the assets? What happened to basic resources that were being controlled and held by those people? So for me, I guess because I have been in the Senate long enough, you know, when we play oversight, we discover a lot of things. So I've been in the Senate long enough to know when the president is saying enough is enough.
Yes.
And you must go. It's because what the public does not see is all the efforts that have been put in by government to try and stop the injustices, you know, in terms of now this misuse of public resources. So, you know, right now the public is just seeing the president saying enough is enough, but they don't know, since we took office, how we've been trying to get rid of this cartel.
And even the president also offered to do all the loans and the bills, to write off all the loans and the bills. Perhaps, how long will it take to have a complete turnaround to make the sugar sector come back to life?
With the political goodwill, honestly, it's just a matter of taking charge of that public resource. It's literally, and that's what the president has done. When you have political goodwill, everything moves. Because if it is about, if we need an amendment, for instance, in the National Assembly or the Senate, you sit down the people, you tell them, guys, in order for us to actually create jobs and bring back Mumias to where it used to be, this is the law that we need to pass. Maybe there's a barrier in law, because sometimes you find that there is, in fact, the cartels, these people, they even know the barriers in law, so they know that even if government at one point will be able to try to get to point A, then I will use point B and this other law to make sure that they don't get in. Like now, there are so many court orders saying that you can't.
Court orders.
There are court orders. There are injunctions saying that government cannot even investigate. You know, stopping all the authorities that are actually responsible to bring back this resource. So these guys know how to maneuver. So I think with political goodwill, I would give it 6 months or less. And we'll be able.
That sounds more optimistic. I mean,
I'm an optimistic person, and I mean, we can go about the business that Kenya Kwanza has been able to deliver in under a year. So when I say 6 months or less, I truly believe the issue might come when you tell the farmers, let's go back to growing our sugarcane. They might have that fear that why should I? Maybe they've invested repeatedly growing and then they actually didn't have good returns. And that's something now we need to work on in terms of building back the trust with the farmers. But in terms of taking over the public resource that actually belongs to the people, the president has said he's not going to, there's no way around it.
What if you go about it this way? The national government taking charge of all the sugar industry across the country, or should it go to the respective counties now that we have got, you know, Awendo, for example, in Migori County, we have got Mumias, What if there is a collaboration between national government and the county government?
I think the ultimate for me is that it should go to the county governments.
Right.
But in order for it to go to the county governments, the national government intervention is needed. We need to be able to set up the framework and take back these resources that were being grabbed by cartels. And then after we have full control of it as a national government, then you can sit down with the stakeholders, which is the county governments, and hand over.
What about
because devolution, for me, devolution should be secured and protected by all means.
What of privatization?
You know, this privatization, when people say privatization, there's always an assumption that, oh, now it's going to work better. But I look at the issue of telecom. And then I ask myself, if that's the privatization that we are pushing, then no.
It starts being a personal kind of property.
It becomes someone's property. And then, I mean, for me, I think the most important thing, let national government intervene, take back the resources that are owned by the public, set up the frameworks that are needed, put the proper laws, sit down with the stakeholders, which is the county governments, and hand over. So that by the time the county government is being told, aya, sasa tumekuachia, you actually have no excuse to say that I got this public nini when it was depleted. So, but definitely the long term would be that you hand it to the county governments. We are pushing for own source revenue on the county government. So why take away resources that they could use to create that own source revenue? And when we listened
to the president when he was in Masai Mara, he said that apart from Amboseli is going to be 50-50 share, go to the county government and the national government. Perhaps something that can happen. You senators, you have a lot of work to do as well, I repeat. Okay. Let me talk about front page of the Star newspaper here. Before you get that, what do you make of this? Teachers have had a lot of hard times in the past, but now there's some kind of white smoke in the offing. Higher salaries for teachers as schools reopen? I
think teachers are the most underrated resource that we have. And now, especially now, since I have had more interaction with teachers, having gone around to distribute pads and everything, I think this is the best thing that could happen. I'm glad the Kenya Kwanza government kept this promise, because this was one that came under the education charter. One thing, though, that I would like to urge our Ministry of Education, and particularly Waziri Machogu, we have teachers who have been teaching in these various schools as BOM teachers for a long time. Some even more than 10 years, they are BOM teachers. And every time we have a recruitment drive of employing more teachers, these teachers get neglected. You understand? So, for instance, like in Kileleshwa Primary, we have 4 BOM teachers who have been there forever. That the more students we are bringing, they are going to need more teachers from TSC. But what happens is every time they apply or they try to attempt to apply, or someone, like even now I'm trying to intervene, they will now go and bring teachers from outside to employ into TSC instead of absorbing the BOM teachers who are already working, they've shown their efficiency. So I think that's one thing that really, there has to be a proper analysis of those existing BOM teachers. How are we absorbing them into the TSC payroll?
All right. Senator, let me take you through the front page of the Star newspaper very quickly before we take a break. CS waived 61 billion shillings debt to save varsities. This is according to Auditor General, which has previously declared leading universities technically insolvent. CS waived 61 billion shillings debt to save varsities. That's according to CS Machogu. He said that this include unlimited statutory deductions, bank and SACCO loans, unpaid suppliers, etc., etc. That's on the front page of the Star newspaper. Again, still on the front page, boom for teachers as union seal salary deal with their employer. That is here. The universities that have been included to be insolvent, let me just take you through that. We have got University of Nairobi, Multimedia University, and Kenyatta University. The total breakdown is here. What public universities owe in terms of getting into a total of 61 billion shillings, payee is 13 billion shillings, SACCO 4.1 billion shillings. We have got unlimited salaries, 4.5 billion shillings, pension schemes 1.3 billion shillings. Last but not least, contractors 1.4 billion shillings, and suppliers 4.8 billion shillings. And according to CS Machogu, he's now urging MPs to declare and to write off all these 61 billion shillings. The way to go?
I just feel bad for the pending bills on contractors and small businesses.
Yeah.
And it's an issue we have to deal with just as holistically, but as an individual issue. Because the issue of pending bills in terms of contractors, suppliers, service providers, it's been such a headache on different fronts. Now you're getting it from the university front, there is from the county governments, it's in different fronts. And it's become so bad that small businesses or any other businesses don't want to work with government because they know that they might not get paid anytime soon. Senator Mariam, nominated Senator Mariam, actually has a very interesting bill towards pending bills. And what it does, it puts a stopgap measure that you cannot spend what you don't have. And before you get that money, you cannot procure. So therefore, by the time you're procuring, you can't be telling someone that there's no money to be paid. You procure because you have money to actually pay. If you don't have money, you don't procure. Because at the end of the day, we won't have situations like this ones. But yeah, we need to figure out how to get ourselves out of the hole that we have been put. And it's not only universities. It's in different parastatals and state agencies.
It's a lot.
By the way, there are some state agencies, if you ask me, honestly, and this might sound like a popularistic comment, that should just be shut down, honestly. Because when you look at how deep we have dug that hole, you can't, there's no way you are going to come out of it. And then you look at some of, especially like in the tourism, in the Ministry of Tourism, there's a lot of state agencies that are doing the same work. You know, or more or less could be merged, and we have more lean and efficient institutions. You know, you have the Kenya Tourism Board, then you have the Tourism Fund, then you have the Kenya meeting and something.
Bring
you know,
all these two bodies together.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, and I know people will say, oh, what about all the people who've been employed and they will lose their jobs? When you have a merger, you're trying to be more efficient and you're trying to ensure that even the taxpayer, when they're paying the taxes, they know, it's okay, let me pay this tax because I know ukombele, there'll be some benefit. But just having workforce for the sake of having workforce, I don't think is the way to go. So, yeah, maybe after Senator Mariam is done with her bill for pending bills, we might have to look into, someone should come up with a state agency's merger bill.
Let's take a break.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back with the Senator Gloria. We'll talk about Somana Glow and that bill about sanitary pads. That is quite close to your heart. You have got a lot happening across the country. We'll be taking a look at that shortly after this break. Please stay with us. And welcome back. Let's now get to, Mheshimiwa, let's just take through the front page of the Standard. Then we get to our discussion. Ruto's wades into rice sugar wars. Ruto wades into rise sugar wars. President William Ruto, in vowing to crush sugar cartels, made reference to Jaswant, who was abducted by a non-person, saying that he is a nobody to manipulate the industry. He was speaking yesterday, and according to the pointers here, DCI yesterday picked Victoria Commercial Bank CEO associated with Rai for questioning over Mumia's lease saga. President said that court cases have to be dropped as they are stalling investment in the company, vowing to take action on the litigant. That's exactly what you just said, Senator. And let's just see how that will go. Teachers have nothing to smile about in pay deal so far, according to the Standard. Whereas the tutors will get between 3 to 10% raise. The same is eroded in new taxation measures. In new salary structure, the raise is between 750 shillings and 5,000 shillings. You can take a look at that story fleshed out there for you on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. Senator, Soma Naglo, how is it going to be sustainable? Because it's a pilot, and you really intend to cover the whole country, if I may get it right.
Yes.
What is your focus on this?
So what I've learned from the GLO's Pad Bank, which is the Pad Bank that we launched in Nairobi, I have to partner with other leaders. So for instance, with that particular one, we've partnered with women reps in different places, single constituency MPs who are women. So even for this Soma Naglo, the intention is to partner with other leaders across the country. For now, I'm taking up this particular one because I have a training center there, and the need was brought personally to me. So I thought, let me use this to pilot. Let me take this case of Kawangware, Gatina, Kabiro, decongesting them using Kileleshwa, and then with time, and actually I have a whole team now saying, since we launched it yesterday, there's so much requests coming left, right and center. Oh, we are situated here, we would like to go to this public school, but it's too far, hence we're in a private school. So is it possible to have the same program run here? So my intention is to possibly have a sit down with like-minded leaders. You know, one of the good things about this Senate and this Parliament that we have now is that we have young leaders who are very progressive, who are about solving problems.
And who can relate with the current lifestyle.
I mean, look at people like Njeri Maina, the women rep for Kirinyaga. Very progressive, very, you know. So this, it's when I drop it in the WhatsApp group of the like-minded thinkers that I have, immediately they're like, yes, this is good, let me do that. I'll give you, for instance, we are trying to put together a manufacturing plant for sanitary pads, either at EPZA or in Naivasha, or depending on how the partnership works out with government and with other sponsors. And the moment Jeremiah of Kirinyaga heard about that, she said, you know what? I also want to do that in Kirinyaga. I think if the government is going to spend money to buy sanitary pads for the girls and the women in Kirinyaga, then, you know, that money should also be revolving around the businesses in Kirinyaga. So I want to help set up a pads factory in Kirinyaga. So I think it's easier. I find it easier for me having this like-minded MPs, women reps, senators, who we can have conversations and decide, you know, let's disrupt what this looks like. Let's change this for the positive, you know. So the long-term plan for Soma Naglo is to partner with any, and I'm not limited to the women reps, you know, to partner with any National Assembly member, MP who thinks that program could work in their constituency, any senator who thinks could work, even a governor. By the way, just as a sidebar, just to show how diverse these partnerships are, Salasia, the MP, is the one who's co-sponsoring my bill in the National Assembly for sanitary pads. So, and you can imagine, yes, when we had that, when the news on February 14th broke out, he was one of the people who was like, this GLO, what's wrong with her, blah, blah, blah. But then we had a sit down and I explained a lot of things, and he also explained to me his perspective of what he thought it was. And then we got to an understanding where he was like, you know what, I want to co-sponsor that bill in National Assembly.
What really motivated you about this? Is it a personal initiative, or are you approaching it through legislation?
You know, I like to pride myself. Yes, I like to pride myself as a change maker. You know, and you know, if I come to this studio and I realize there's a lot of problems here, and I'm like, why people not seeing we can do this better? I would like to be part of an initiative that actually changes people's lives. So most of these initiatives that you see I'm launching and actually taking on as my project, they come from somewhere. Like, for instance, Oloo only came up when I went to so many public schools and found that many of them are completely congested. Some of them are very empty. And the more I probed, the more I was told transport, transport, transport. So I was like,
you find some kids traveling or walking some long distances.
And the parents cannot even afford the matatus. And some of those kids are too young to be able to walk that long distance. So sometimes parents are forced to put their kids in a private school because the private school is the one that is closer to home. So my initiatives are more, they're social initiatives. And it's not that we are sitting down thinking, hey, this month, what are we going to do? These are problems that we come across with my team. And then I'm like, let's sit down. We can't be the people complaining about government. We can't be the people complaining about certain institutions. We have to be the people who are actually saying, I've come here, I've seen this is wrong. What can I do from my own? Maybe I might not have CDF because I'm not an elected member of parliament. I don't have any other fund that I have access to. But I have a salary. And in my salary, maybe I can spare 50, 60,000 to do something.
It makes a difference.
Or I have friends who actually are always asking me, what can we do to help in this process of changing the things you want to change? So it's a balance.
It's a balance. But then is it only to the public schools or even private?
So actually from the 55 kids we have moved, I would say like half of them are from private schools. And when you ask them, they would tell you, I'm in a private school because I can't afford the transport to go to a public school.
Yeah, because of the distance.
Because of the distance.
Okay.
So, and you know, I'm not paying the school fees. The parents are saying, we will pay the school fees to the public school. I mean, that bare minimum, you know, it's like about 1,500 per term. They're like, we will pay that, but we can't get there. The transport cost to get there is way expensive. The issue of the food that now Sakaja is solving with Dish in Aglo, Dish in County, it's also a big thing because per day, if you are to buy food for kids, it's 50 shillings at the bare minimum per day. That's a lot of money for a person who can't... now imagine if you put the 50 shillings per day for food and then you put the transport, which might even go to like 100, depending on where they can... It's heavy for people who are just trying to get basic education.
I'm trying to look at it this way. Why don't partner with the government to invest more in schools, in building more schools closer to the people? Because you'll find a school at point X and another one far-flung area point Y. So the distance between school X and school Y, the distance is quite huge. Then why don't you build or partner with the national government to build a school to bridge the gap between school X and school Y?
So, you know, for this particular initiative, first of all, I wanted to showcase. You know, I'll give you an example of many young people who come with proposals. They're like, I have a proposal, and it looks so good on paper. And you always ask, how come you've not done anything? They're like, oh, we don't have money. I don't have this. So I tend not to be the theory kind of person who will come with a proposal. So the pilot is to showcase. And after 4 or 5 months, after let's say 1 term, you can be able to put together a report on the impact assessment of the same, on, you know, even the grades going up, a general report of, we have piloted 55 students moving here to Mewasimamia Transport. This is the impact. Then now with that particular case study, it is easy now to go and say, listen, Waziri, this is what we have done in 1 term. Now, we have mapped out all these different schools that have a low population. And we have mapped out that maybe 15 of those schools across the country don't have school buses. This is the cost of what it will cost to put school buses, but this is the cost of what you will be saving. Because when you're moving these kids from highly populated schools, the public schools, and to those low populated, you're also saving on cost because those schools are also asking for more TSC teachers, more, you know. So there has to, so for me, the pilot is also to understand, and even for myself to say, this is the impact. And then when I'm now trying to convince whichever other stakeholder, even outside of national government, then I'll be able to say, these are the wins, this is how effective this thing is, this is what we are saving, You know, and then someone can be like, wow, why are we not buying these 30 school buses? Yeah. But the issue of just sitting in theory and writing proposals, which our youth are so used to, you know how many youth are always sending me messages on inbox, I have a proposal. They send like 6 pages, and then you ask them, okay, this looks good, how come you've not started? They'll always tell you, I don't have money. But you don't need, sometimes and most of the times, you don't need a lot of money to pilot something.
Yes.
You just need to start small and showcase the impact, and then people will actually buy into the idea. Another example I'll give you. After the incident on February 14th where I got my period at the floor of the house, one of my friends said, why are people so negative about this? You mean men don't know about this? In fact, I'm going to put for them a billboard. And then they went and procured a billboard, right? And the impact of that billboard was so high that other organizations that have been working on the advocacy of menstrual hygiene were asking themselves, why have we never put a billboard? Let us also partner and put for her a billboard. So, but it took that one person to say, Gloria, we need to shout about this. And he went kwa mfuko yake, paid for the billboard. Then other people were able to see, this is also what we want to do. So piloting for me is that dream that you really believe in as a person, and you think that business can be big. Well, how much have you invested in it?
Yes, an idea itself is a capital. So you don't need to have monetary capital to start.
So you also, if you're going to tell someone, I want to start this business, it's going to make us millionaires, how come you have not spent your 50 shillings on it? So you're bringing a proposal that is written to me, so that me, I spend my 5,000 on it, but you have not piloted at your small level. So for me, this is a pilot, so that I can convince the stakeholders that, you know, if we are going to disrupt how this normal thing looks like for high impact, these are the stats. You've
just spoken my mind. Anytime I feel like losing hope, these 3 words I usually say, Victor, just begin.
Yes. Just begin.
Just begin. Finally on this one, Senator, when you look at the gender imbalance, how is the gender imbalance in terms of school-going children being affected? Because when you have a distance from school Y and school Z, what is the gender parity in terms of people who are affected by this?
Especially from class 6 going up, some parents just figure out the girls can stay home.
Wacha wanaume waende.
Or some parents who unfortunately they feel like the burden is too high. You find, for instance, the cases that I have experienced. You'll find the mother will be like, sasa niko na watoto watano, and 3 of them are girls. Those girls are from class 7 kwenda juu. So what I'll do, because me I go around to clean, I'll go with the girls to clean houses.
Class 7 and class 8, that's the peak.
And then because the girls can clean, the boys can't clean. So you find certain decisions, and it's not, you don't blame the parents, they're trying to figure out, how do I make this work? So they're like, if I clean one house in 2 hours, if I go with my class 7 student, we clean it in 30 minutes, we can clean 3 houses. Then we make more money. So automatically, they have removed their child from school and brought them into the workforce. And not necessarily probably the workforce that the child would have chosen. So the gender parity, actually, I don't have the stats on that particular gender parity of when the schools are far, or how do you decide, and blah, blah, blah. And that's what we're working on as we are piloting. But I would say that then it starts affecting the girl child. And I know there's this, let me tell you, there's this conversation people are saying, every time you talk Mheshimiwa, it's just about the girl child. It's just about the girl child. What happens to the boy child? You know, like for instance, when I distribute pads, they're like, so you have brought pads for the girls. What about the boys? Why haven't you brought them underwears? And I'm like, first of all, we need to isolate ourselves from this mentality of anytime I do something for Glow, I should do something for Nani. You know, because a problem that affects girls, you cannot now come and demand that you must compensate the boys for solving that problem. So we have had an issue of the girl child for a long period of time. And yes, maybe it seems that there's more attention being paid to the girl child, and the boy child is feeling isolated. But this is where I ask all the leaders who ask me, what about the boy child?
What about the boy child?
Why are you not calling the men who are majority, who you have elected in the National Assembly and the Senate? Why are you not calling them out for not mentoring or coming up with initiatives for the boy child? Why do you see Gloria, who's working on the girl child, and then you start telling her, what about the boy child? But when you see, for instance, Kimani Ichung'wah just going about his business, why are you not asking him, what about the boy child? Because you see, some of us, like for me, I am nominated to represent women and girls across the country. So I am squarely within my job description.
It will be interesting to see men taking charge on the boy child. And
why aren't they taking charge? In fact, even if you go to Mount Kenya, it is still the women coming to take charge of the boy child, saying that we must end, for instance, the issue of drug abuse and alcohol. It is the women at the forefront. It is the second lady who's at the forefront in terms of the boy child. Why? When they are we have more men who are elected than women. Why is the burden always being put on us? Deal with the boy child, deal with the girl child.
I feel indicted on behalf of men.
In fact, I want to urge Kenyans. Anytime you see me distributing pads, ask yourself, if there's an area MP who's a man, why is he not there talking to the boys, mentoring them, distributing underwears for them?
This takes me to the next question, Senator. On 21st of this month, the front page of the Star newspaper was all about you. Are education officials trading on girls, period? It was a question mark.
Yes.
It was on the front page of the Star, and you are the author of this. And the story says that our staff in education ministry trading on poor girls' periods. It was a complete pullout on the Star newspaper. You are the sponsor of this bill. Allow me to ask you, why so close to your heart?
First, because, you know, I'm nominated by the government political party, the political party in government. And sometimes people feel because you are from that section, wewe ni mtu wa serikali, you shouldn't speak ill of the government. But the government, just like any institution, sometimes does some few mistakes here and there.
So a bit of some panel beating kidogo. And
they are individuals. But then the government is an individual. So the government is not just William Ruto. They are all these individuals that form, including the electorate, including the public. And on that particular article, let me say, I concur that there are some rogue officials in the Ministry of Education who have been handling this issue of provision of sanitary towels, who have actually taken advantage of this particular industry, and the harm that it has caused to our girls is not just a harm for this week and next week, is long term. By that I say, for instance, they are responsible in the procurement of the sanitary pads. You'll find, because they want the profit margins or whatever it is, or however mathematics that they are calculating, they go for the cheapest. They procure low quality sanitary pads. They procure very harmful sanitary pads. And this is so I'm speaking of this authoritatively because it is something I have seen and I have experienced. And I'm telling you that the issue that I have of having the sanitary pads domiciled in the Ministry of Education was because in that same ministry, particularly the people dealing with this procurement and distribution of the same cartels you see the president is talking about with the sugar industry are domiciled there.
These are criminal acts, Senator.
Those are criminal acts because, you know, for people who don't, and they are men, by the way, they are men. They are men. It's because they don't understand that if you procure for me a sanitary pad that has chemicals and this, the effect that you are actually subjecting me to is that I might have a long-standing health condition. It might actually interfere with my fertility, ukombele. It might also interfere with so many things. I'll be in and out of hospital dealing with infections, dealing with burns, dealing with all sorts of things because someone has decided to just go rogue. Now, that particular article was pointing out to the fact that as a government, we are trying to solve the problem of period poverty.
Yes.
But we need to be intentional on solving that problem without creating many other problems. And the only way to do that, and I still insist, is by uprooting that budget from the Ministry of Education and sitting it at the Ministry of Gender. And once you do that, and that is what my bill now is proposing, even in the Ministry of Gender, you can't just have anyone procuring these things.
There's a docket meant for it.
Yeah. What I'm trying to create through my bill is a special committee that will actually deal with everything holistically. from procurement to distribution to the impact, to which areas require more, to which girls require different type of materials, because it's not everybody who's going to just use pads, or how we're going to have sustainability, the environment, how we are going to preserve the environment and not littering with the plastics and all sorts of things. That's a committee, because in itself, it's a whole subject matter that needs subject matter experts and stakeholders. So in that committee, you'll have the PS from gender, PS from correctional services, from health. You'll have 2 representatives from the Council of Governors, so that they can also tell us in terms of distribution. Some counties are more vulnerable and require urgent, immediate interventions. Other counties might require different, so you need the Council of Governors also part of that. We will have the civil society, because they also understand what it means in terms of quality, in terms of how do we make it fair. If it's a tax exemption situation, how do you lobby from the different stakeholders, things like that. So, and I will not tire talking about it. But if you ask me, in my ideal world, that will be a ministry. That should have been a ministry.
That's the way to go, Senator, because...
In my ideal world, I know it sounds like, oh, you don't need a ministry for periods.
Why not? Why not? This is something that affects
everyone. If you have a ministry for all these different industries that affect, this is 55% of the population.
Let's take a break. Let's take a break. And we come back. I just want us to find out the issue of the Auditor General also supported this, the story they're talking about. And I want to understand, you've really pointed some serious fingers on us as men. What are we doing? Let's talk about when they come back with the Gloria Senator Orwoba. All right, welcome back. Still talking about matters education, hygiene, and something that people think that even us. Today in People and Politics, we're talking about something completely different. Hygiene. Schools are reopening. We've had issues and stories covered all over that young girls do shy away from going to school at any given particular time of the month. We all know that it really happens. When we're in primary school, we would see some young girls experiencing their first cycle. You would imagine the kind of shock they have with them. And perhaps this, what you said, it's based on the experience out there. So you're the voice of the voiceless. You're representing the voiceless out there. What is the stage of this bill as you speak? Where is it?
I launched it publicly on May 27th. And then the legal team, the drafters within Senate, also advised me that we needed to change a couple of things from certain feedback here and there. So we changed it. So first of all, when I launched it, it was 2 amendments, one in the Prisons Act and another one in the Education Act. And then they felt that there was so much, which actually from the beginning I kept on saying, I want a standalone bill. And they were advising me, you can't have a standalone bill because this affects this particular amendment and that particular amendment. And later, when they got to realize what I was trying to do, is then they realized that actually we need to give her a standalone bill. We need to edit a few things here and there. So that's what they did. And a couple of weeks back, we concluded on the new edit, and it has started the internal process. There's an internal process of it too. By the time it reaches on the first reading, there's an internal process. And part of it is also seeking concurrence from the National Assembly to ascertain that really this is a bill that involves county governments and devolution, so therefore it can start the process in the Senate. So there are some things that are happening internally, and I hope that when we open this coming session, I'll be able to have it on first reading. And now that I've gone through the Konza bill, I think I know where to anticipate the challenges, where to anticipate the issues of it moving from one step to another. I'm getting better at this process of legislation. You know, when you talked about the whole process of how you're going to make it work for you, let's assume and fast forward that the bill is passed and voila, it's now law. What are you looking at in terms of budget so that you can roll it, the whole project to be rolled out across the country? So first, let me just appreciate that when the incident on February 14th happened, and
Yes.
at that point, the current budget was 260 million. And of course, there was a lot of uproar. What is this? What are we going to do about period poverty? And I had several conversations with the president, and he was like, yeah, definitely. I was pushing for 1 billion for this financial year. And, but I mean, he did very well because he gave us 940 million.
That's almost
from 260, so it's just shy of a billion.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I'm saying, when with political goodwill, let me tell you, you can move mountains. So with that 940 million, I mean, of course, I think this financial year will pass before we are implementing that, if at all the bill passes into law. But what I would look into is now, aside from the money from the exchequer, the 940 million, assuming it stays the same, this committee has independence of setting up a kitty. And in that kitty, for instance, I have a lot of partners who have been keen on scaling up the support on ending period poverty.
Yes.
So they're working with me on an individual basis. But, I mean, they're also looking for how can we partner with government.
Yeah.
So with this bill, if it passes to law, then that committee has the independence and the authority to be able to open a kitty and receive billions from partners. There are several partners who are taking this key focus of menstrual hygiene. You have UNFPA, you have AIDS Healthcare Foundation. These are all organizations that I work with that are willing to put money and partner with government. You have UNICEF that deals with children and ensuring that you have effective education. We have so many. But they seem, you know, we've had challenges in terms of different PPPs with government. Because, for instance, the issue of menstrual hygiene, who do you partner with?
Yeah.
Will you go to Ministry of Health? Will you go to Ministry of Gender? Will you go to Ministry of Education? Because they are all equally dealing with, somehow, period poverty. In the Ministry of Health, they're dealing with the menstrual hygiene. I know that because they actually even have programs around menstrual hygiene. With Ministry of Education, they're the ones who are holding the budget of sanitary pads. Ministry of Gender is the one that deals with everything gender, and particularly in relation to even the teenage pregnancies that come about because of the sex for pads.
Yes.
So if you are an individual, for instance, AIDS Healthcare, AHF, and you want to put money in government, where will you put it for this period poverty?
It's a bit tricky.
It poses and that's what I'm trying to solve with that committee. So you have a committee that deals with everything menstruation, everything period poverty, everything procurement, That way, if you're an organization that wants to partner with government on that level, it's easy for you to say, hey, I have $1 million I want to donate to government of Kenya. I'll put it in that.
You have a direct spot to go on.
Yes.
But based on this, are education officials trading on girls' periods? This headline sounded more alarming.
It is very alarming.
When you talk about education officials, that's huge. I mean,
but
break it down.
But people assume that there's a magic that happens when government is working. No, it's a human being.
Yes.
When government is procuring, there's a human being somewhere saying we are going to go with this tender.
Yes.
When government is distributing, there's a human being somewhere making phone calls to different people in the county saying, wewe kujia pads zenu.
Yes.
So it is human beings who are actually trading with the health of
then it means
girls.
that there's something, a cartel is also here.
That's what I said.
How are you going to deal with them?
By the way, I feel like I wish one of the you remember we were talking about commission of inquiry of state capture and all that. I wish that would have been put, because I feel like you need a commission of inquiry on cartelism across all government agencies and institutions. Like, you need people who are just sitting and they're like, there are cartels in the Kenya Airports Authority. This is how we are dealing. There are cartels here, and they're literally an independent body that is just targeted at these individuals who have infiltrated public entities and the systems and found a way to take advantage of public resources. Yeah.
Finally, you, as I said when you started, you're so hardworking. You have got so many things running, bill after bill after bill, and proposals and proposals. Do you even have time to sleep?
By the way, I love my job. I love being in Senate. It has its challenges. It has its I mean, we also have cartels there, you know. But I'll tell you something. It's never easy anywhere. So you have the option to sit and sulk or change things.
Yeah.
I'm very intentional about using these 5 years that God has given me to represent people. And I want to be able to say that I want to leave a legacy. I want to actually, you know, because you don't know where you're going to end up after 5 years, but I want to, in every single job opportunity that I have had in my adulthood, I have left a legacy somewhere. And I want to be able to say that in Senate, I left a legacy. And an impactful one. So it's not only bills, because I've also quickly learned that you can have, I have 5 bills, but already one has failed. So I have to retable it. So it's not only the legislative agenda, but it's also just the disruptive movement of being a change maker. And that's what I'm very intentional about. In fact, I am no longer sitting in committees where I don't feel like I have an impact. And I know that sounds very arrogant, but you know, I can't, I feel like being in a gathering using public resources and not having any impact is actually cheating. So there are some of the spaces that I have been privileged to be put and nominated to be put, and I'm like, I'm not having an impact. So I better step aside for someone who can have an impact in that space. But in 5 years, I'll tell you, if I can just do one thing and do it right, especially with the issue of representation of women, and particularly in the menstrual hygiene and ending period poverty, I think I'll be happy with that.
Waislamu wanasema inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So close to your heart. We'll be talking about matters menstrual hygiene and Somana Glow, the 2 big kind of projects that the senator is undertaking right now. Education is for all of us. We are products of education, and when we have one thing supporting the other, then education always becomes so easy. Senator, thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for having me.
Karibu sana.
Yeah.
All right, now let's take a break and we cross over to, funny enough, we're talking about education. Still today matters. People and politics is about education, education, education. When you're crossing over to Zinga, Dora Manya will be having a discussion with the FCPA, Charles Ringera, who is the CEO of Higher Education Loans Board. There's just so much to be talked about today, matters to do with education, even as schools reopen for the final term of this particular year. All right, so that will be coming up shortly on Zinga na KBC. My name